What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Landscape Accelerator Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Colin from Worx. Colin, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and where you operate.
Yeah, man, for sure. What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me, by the way. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course.
So my name's Colin. I live in Stuart, Florida, which is right in like the West Palm Beach area on the east coast of Florida. I started Worx Outdoor 2 years ago. I was in the landscaping space for about 6 years, running my own operation, and same song and dance as every other landscaper in the world. I was mowing lawns at 12, which kind of got me into the space, but sold my design build maintenance company in 2020, moved to Florida in 21. And like I said, I started this 2 years ago, but essentially we do 3D designs and renderings for contractors pretty much across the nation. So, contractor will come to me with a budget, all the necessary job materials to come up with a concept, and then they have the visuals and the construction plans to present to their client to close the deal. But that's pretty much the gist of what we do. Yeah.
Right on. So obviously, with what you do, you can service people from anywhere. So how do people go about finding you? What's kind of your general process as far as attracting new clients or people to work with, and how can people kind of find you and reach out to you if there's something that they're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, so we built the entire business from social media. I kind of didn't have a pot to piss in, for lack of a better term, when we started. I did designs for my own company, which were nothing of the caliber of what we do now. But I kind of was just like honestly begging people for an opportunity to let me design some stuff for them, and I wasn't charging them. But yeah, kind of snowballed from there. A lot of our clients find us on social media. That's our biggest outlet. I don't really do any paid marketing at this time. I did initially, but we've kind of figured the organic part out, and it's working pretty well. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how we get all of our clients is through social media. And the process, as far as, obviously we're working with people remotely. So a lot of things have to happen in order for us to build out a project accurately. First and foremost is obviously like quality pictures of a site, if it's a pre-existing site. If not, we need, the architectural plans, the layout, setbacks, all that kind of stuff. And if it's an existing thing, same thing, need whatever kind of building plans, site plans they can get us. Setbacks, and then depending on where they're at in the country, elevations are obviously a necessity, more so in like the areas with more terrain, not like us here in South Florida. It's pretty flat. So
yeah. So I really want to dive into that process a little bit more, only because I'm pretty unfamiliar with it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to like the software piece,
Mm-hmm.
and also just kind of piggybacking off of what you need from a potential client to actually, pull whatever files, pictures, stuff like that, and start what you do. Like when you say job site pictures, like,
Yeah.
how does me taking my phone, taking a picture of the backyard, how does that, from your perspective, translate into the software, and then you building out on top of that, and like just
Yeah.
going kind of in depth and in detail about how that all works? Because I'm super curious. I don't have any experience with like 3D rendering software, stuff like that. So very
So
curious.
essentially it's just modeling software. So when I say pictures of the site, like what we actually don't want is pictures of the backyard. Like I want you to stand in the furthest point of the yard, face the camera at the house that you're working on, and taking a picture that way. So the picture isn't necessarily for, like, we don't import anything from the pictures. Like I'm just utilizing that picture as a reference to model the house accordingly. So like, is there custom trim pieces? Is there veneer, a quarter of the way up of the facade of the house? Is there shutters? Where are the downspouts? Like just those little details to make the model look a little bit more accurate. And then the measurements and all that is what comes into play. So like I will utilize those plans and import those plans into my software and kind of build and scale accordingly. But The pictures are literally just for reference as far as like, the aesthetic of the house.
Okay, got you. So picture is the reference. You're pretty much having to manually build a replication of what their property looks like inside of the software, and the measurements and all of that stuff just helps you kind of do that to scale, essentially.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And then obviously match the aesthetic of the yard and colors and all
Yep.
that stuff too. Okay, gotcha. And I know obviously it completely depends project to project, but
Yeah.
how long does that process take? And what's kind of, from step one of starting to build the, replica of the house to then adding the features and like,
Yeah.
or other motion effects or like colors and, sunlight, all this stuff. Like how
Yeah.
long does all that take from start to finish on the
So
approach?
again, like you said, it really does depend on the caliber of the project. Obviously the more details involved and the more features, the longer it's going to take. And sometimes like house models will take us a really long time. You get some of these custom homes down here in South Florida. They're a lot more difficult to build than like a cookie cutter home in Pennsylvania, wherever. So that's obviously a big factor. And then the features itself. And the post-production, honestly, like that used to take me the longest. Like you said, like making sure the sunlight's right. And like I'll pull everything into another editing software to kind of put like cool transitions and camera angles and just to kind of make it look different from our competitors. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's so hard to put like a time frame on it. Like I would say a regular project that's like, a $30,000 patio is probably for an initial concept, like 5-hour process of just like the modeling, the post-production. But like that doesn't include the time that we spent with the client before we design the project. That's usually like a 30-minute Teams call. And then the revisions, of course, which is usually the most time consuming part, depending on the project itself.
Right. And obviously there's kind of the chain of communication where you've got the homeowner or the person that's funding the project, and then you've got the landscape contractor, the person that's doing the actual install, and then there's you. So what are some of the things that you've noticed as far as maybe reducing the amount of back and forth and revisions and stuff like that? Like for you to do your job as good as possible, ideally in the quickest amount of time with the least amount of revisions, because that's obviously what's best for you and for the contractor.
For sure.
What are some of the things that for guys maybe that are thinking about hiring someone to do a rendering or something like that? What can they do to set you up for success the best? What do they need from the homeowners and just everything in general to make that process smooth?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the biggest dilemma that shouldn't be a dilemma, in my opinion, is I think a lot of guys have a hard time with like subcontracting or outsourcing their design. Like I can assure you that 95% of your customers do not care who does the design. You are an installer and run a business. We are the creatives that conceptualize and design these things. Two different things, in my opinion. So if we can deal directly with the homeowner, we will do that. There is a separate charge for that because honestly, it requires a lot more hand holding and a lot more attention than just dealing directly with the contractor. But I think the biggest thing, regardless of whether we're working directly with the homeowner or the contractor, is, asking key questions and understanding like that client's budget and what you as a business are able to produce given that budget. Like I need to understand if it's a $50,000 budget, like what are we able to do based on your overhead and your cost for that amount of money? So in that first Teams call that we do, once we have all the necessary information and the invoice is paid, like which we can get into later, that's when we start talking about all of these things. So what we'll do is I'll pull up like a survey or an overhead drone photo and kind of just draw out like really, really rough and like paint to just kind of conceptualize and plan to make sure that like what I'm about to design for the next 5 to 6 hours is in fact in line with the budget parameters and the concept that they want. And also understanding really what the customer wants, because I think oftentimes like guys will just take, the inspiration photos and just like give it to me. And I'm like, okay, this is great, but this is like 4 different styles. So I think from a contractor's perspective, like get more information than you need, like really have an understanding of what this person wants. And they're going to appreciate that too. But again, I think those are the most key components to what we need in order to be successful. But that pre-design meeting where we go over the concept has been a fucking lifesaver. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now speak your mind, brother.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lifesaver. Because in the past, like, I'll go based off of just an email and like spend all this time, and then I'm stoked on it and I send it to them like, yeah, this is not what we were looking for. I'm like, cool. So that's kind of when we implemented that whole pre-design meeting with the conceptual, if you will, just again, to make sure that everybody's expectations are clear. Yeah.
I can definitely see how that would be maybe the bottleneck of the whole process, especially in the beginning, where it's just like, you've got 3 different parties that all need to be aligned on the vision, the budget, the end goal, what it looks like, the style, everything. And then it's just, there's a lot of factors in play kind of between all of that, and getting everybody lined up and in sync with that can be, I would imagine, quite a process at times. So,
yeah, I mean, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. It's really just like, for lack of a better term, like it's a lot easier with contractors who have their shit together. Like, and it's really not that difficult of a process. Like a lot of guys will overcomplicate it. Like I'll be like, oh, did you get this? Like, no. I'm like, well, why didn't you get that? Like, you were just with this person for an hour. Like all you had to do was ask. But again, a lot of the guys get better with it as time goes on. But
yeah. So what are some of the things that are maybe common objections? Because I think that, like you said earlier, there's definitely a distinction in skill set from the guy that's in the field, laying the pavers, building the retaining wall, installing the pool, whatever it is. Like that in and of itself is a whole trade, craft, skill, similarly to 3D renderings, online, like design, the creativity aspect of all of that. And it's like, okay, what are some things that contractors come to you and they know that they need your services, or they're reaching out and inquiring, and it's like their common objections or the things that you think hold them back from using a service like you, where obviously it's beneficial, obviously they're going to get a better end product than what they would do themselves. And like, what do you think are some of the limiting beliefs, I guess, that hold them back from using someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things that come to mind right away. First thing is, especially with the older generation, is like, well, how are you going to design something if you can't walk the site? Well, while I understand and value that concern, like if the correct information is gathered, it is not an issue. It only becomes an issue when we don't get all the necessary information delivered. That's when there would be a disconnect. So, that's always my response to that. And the second thing is the cost. Like I bang this into guys' head. This is not an expense. If you are looking at this as an expense, see ya. We're not the right fit. Like this is a tool, because you are utilizing this, concept to assist you in selling a job and have your customer visualize what it is that they're getting. So the way that I tell everybody to do it, like let's just use 2,500 as a round number. If the design costs you $2,500, you as the contractor should be charging $3,000, because you are the one going out on site. You're meeting with this person. You're collecting all the data. So you bill your client $3,000 with this expectation and this preface of that $3,000 charge, right? If you use us, we're going to put that $3,000 on the tail end of the cost of the job. If you don't use us, that's fine. Take your design and be on your merry way. But that $500 is covering your time. I'm paid. You have a portfolio piece now that's like branded to your company. And like, if they don't use you, no harm, no foul. And if they do use you, like you and I both know that we're just going to hide that $3,000 charge in other expenses of the project itself. So you're not really losing. I think that that's the biggest setback is guys like see that number and they're like, oh my God, well, you shouldn't be paying for that number out of your pocket. And like, if someone's about to spend $100,000 on a project and they don't want to do a design, that should be a red flag to you as a contractor. Like, do I want to work with this person? Like, and from a consumer standpoint, imagine spending 6 figures on something and not really understanding or grasping what it is that you're actually getting. I mean, that's fucking insanity to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I cut you off. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, all I was going to say is like, it's not an expense and it shouldn't be looked at as an expense, and you should not be dishing out the cost of it yourself. So I think it's really just like a perspective thing, especially for guys that are newer to it. Like, again, it's a tool. It's not an expense.
Yeah. And two biggest things that you just talked about that make perfect sense to me is, one, baking the cost of the design and the rendering into the actual project. And like you said, whether that gets billed on the front end or the back end, it's to spend $10K, $100K beyond whatever on something, the $3,000 or $4,000, $10,000, whatever for the design, that should be like a no-brainer for the homeowner and for the contractor. Like, if a project is that size and that level of like detail and I guess like elegance, whatever, like luxury build, stuff like that, it just doesn't make sense to not be able to see it.
It doesn't. And the crazy part is like, honestly, like what we charge in comparison to a normal like design firm is peanuts.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I know like the design sales percentage is like 3 to 5% or something, they say is what the cost of the design should be. And like, if you do the math on ours, it's sometimes like 1%, 1.5%, 2%. So like, to me, it's just like, what are we even talking about here? But again, you can lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink. So, and again, I don't want every client. I realize not every contractor is our client. So,
yeah. And what you just said there is, I think, really important, where it's like, there's so many things that I think people are aware of that they should be doing, or that might make sense on paper, but for some reason with some people, it just doesn't click.
Yeah.
Another thing for me is like, the way that I see it, like if I was in the position of someone that was about to do a design and build project, let's say it was something that was, a 6-figure build or something of that sort. Like, dude, if you showed up to that potential client, whatever, as a salesman, I feel like you could absolutely blow. But if you have a really awesome design and rendering, like that closes the job for you. Like,
yeah,
what needs to be said? Like, if you can show the person exactly what it's going to look like at the end of the day, and assuming that all other causes and concerns are irrelevant, it's just, does the budget match this picture that I'm showing right here? If those two things are aligned, then I don't see why,
Yeah, I'm with you. And like, let's be honest here. Like, contractors aren't salesmen usually. And like, I guarantee you, like, I don't know what the statistics are, but I don't think that, like, first and foremost, if someone's reaching out to you about a project like this, like, they're going to do it. They want to do it. It's already in their head. So you're selling them something that they want and that is going to solve some sort of issue that they're having. Like, they don't have a place to sit by the pool, or they don't have a place to they don't have a fire pit or whatever. So you're providing a solution to an issue that they have and they want it. So you're already winning there. It's not like you're knocking on someone's door and trying to sell them solar when they want to tell you to get off their property. So to have a visual aid that more or less is going to blow them away, like you said, even the shittiest salesman is going to have a higher chance of closing that job with the visual assist.
Absolutely. I like that is the close right there is, showing the person the end goal, the end vision for it, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So is that something that you would say is definitely part of your kind of, I guess, like pitch, where it's like any people that you've worked with, I'm assuming that they've seen a significant increase in.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because I just talked to someone yesterday that closed like $150K in the past I don't even know, like month or something. He sent me a text. He was like all fired up. And it just makes me laugh, like, because, you know, you have guys like that and then other guys that like complain about the cost. And like, again, you're just not using it right.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I probably should have touched on this before too, is like, we're not your salespeople. I've had issues with that in the past too, where they're like, you know, like, well, you didn't tell me like what I'm like, I can make suggestions on how you should present this material and like how you should charge for it. But like, I'm not selling the job for you. Like, you have to use this again as a tool, how it best fits within your process and your systems. But anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. I mean, you've obviously upon delivery of the materials, you've pretty much checked off your responsibilities as far as what you're trying to
Yeah,
contractor with, which is the vision, right? Like
yeah,
creating the ability for the customer to see what this space is going to look like. You know, it's still on the contractor to go talk to that homeowner and shake hands, get a
yeah,
signature and make the deal happen. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, but like, I just can think of times where like in the beginning that guys would like, oh, well, I didn't get this job. And I'm like, yeah,
mm,
I'm sorry. That sucks. Like, I still put in 10 hours. Like, you still need to pay me. This is before we implemented the payment upfront process, but
yeah.
yeah, that was a whole thing in itself too.
Yeah, I can see how that would be for you, especially a little difficult where it's like, you know, obviously you want every design that you do to be the one that actually gets installed, right?
Yeah,
But
no doubt. Like, I'm not here to take anyone's money. Like, I started this to help contractors because I remember being in their shoes and like when I was getting into the design build space, like I had a vision. I can't draw on paper. So like as a young contractor with no portfolio to show for, like I'm trying to sell someone a $70,000 backyard and they're like, yeah, dude, get out of here. Like,
mm,
go back to high school.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think another piece of this whole thing is like the baking the cost into your estimate, right? And
Mhm.
like you said, part of having all of that happen and work out for all parties involved is coming down to the contractor knowing their numbers. And
Yeah.
that is a phrase that honestly, it's like fucking nails on a chalkboard for me sometimes because everybody's like, know your numbers. Like it's people are aware of it and it's just like a regurgitated thing on
Yeah.
social media, I feel like. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of validity to it where it's like, you know, obviously with what I do too, with, you know, website design, digital marketing, stuff like that, in order for me to generate the best results for a client of mine, the biggest thing that we're going to focus on is return on investment.
Yeah.
So I want you to spend X with me in return, you know, double, triple, 10X that
Sure.
ideally, right? But in order for that to be calculated, you have to know, you know, what your numbers are as far as your overhead, what that client actually cost you. And yes,
Yep.
there's a lot of reporting and, you know, data that I have to collect too to say, hey, here's what it costs us to get a lead. Here's what, you know, we're paying for this campaign overall, all the different numbers on my end that I have to know for me and my business, but also just the general overhead, the running expenses, labor costs, material costs, all the things, all the little stuff that when it comes to, you know, getting a $2,500, $3,000 design, baking that into your project cost, it's sometimes the math doesn't math with contractors. And I
Yeah.
struggle to understand why it's a difficult problem to solve. Either, you know, you have to do a little bit of a sit down and, you know, analyze everything's financial statements and stuff like that, but also there are so many tools and people out there that'll just like do it for you. You've
Well,
got
that's
books, you've
just
got
to me that's what it boils down to. Like, and again, being on both sides, being where I am now, and then being in the contracting space. Like, for starters, I wasn't a good business owner from the perspective of the landscaping company. Like,
mm,
I was a creative. I liked being on site building the shit, and I liked designing stuff. I did not like dealing with pain in the ass homeowners. I didn't like dealing with the guys not showing up. Um, Numbers, didn't know a damn thing. In my mind, like as a young contractor, it's like, oh, I'm working 65 hours a week. I'm crushing it. And
mm,
then like, you know, I'd have a meeting with my accountant and be like, I want to jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
because, again, like being busy doesn't equate to income. But again, with that being said, like just realizing what you're good at and do those things, and what you're not good at, you hire someone else to do. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. And similar experience, like first 2 years running my own business, crunching the numbers at the end of the year, it's like, bro, I would have made more money working at fucking McDonald's. But that's my fault as a business owner for not calculating that stuff, not knowing that stuff ahead of time. And also sometimes there's just little stuff that isn't necessarily on the radar all the time, especially when you're in the field, busy doing 40, 50, 60-hour weeks. And it's like, bro, the business owner piece of things, that is just out the fucking window. You're focused on all the fires that you got to put out on a day-to-day between crews and projects and people. And it's overwhelming. It can be a lot for sure. But, I think that that's definitely a challenge as a business owner that you need to overcome. It comes with time and experience, and, over time and just years in the game, you kind of develop it, because I think a lot of people, literally like what me and you just said, the rude awakening is you do all this work, you generate all this money, you do all these amazing projects, and then you sit down with the accountant at the end of the year and you're like, fuck. And that for some people, for hopefully everybody, is kind of the rude awakening where it's like, okay, there's something, I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm the problem, right? This is not how it should be. This is not what I want. Everyone runs a business to be profitable. And in order to do that, there's some math involved. There's some number crunching involved. And it's just kind of something that piece by piece, you got to figure it out and work on it. So, let's just like rewind a little bit before landscaping. What like previous experience did you have, and what kind of drew you into that world?
The landscaping world?
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, dude, I cut grass. Like I this is going to sound like an exaggeration, but I can assure you it's not. Like, I'm sure you've seen the videos of the kids, like making the weed whacker noises and like pushing a little bubble lawnmower around. Like that was me to a T. I have to find, I really want to, especially now that I do all this social media stuff. I want my mom to send me like the VHS tape of me making the weed whacker noise with my mouth. Is fucking hysterical. But yeah, I mean that. And then I had a push reel mower. You know what those are? Like the not self-propelled. Like the faster you push, the faster the reel spins. I saved my money, bought one of those, did a couple lawns in the neighborhood. And then I like upgraded to an electric mower, which I don't even know if that's still a thing, but I'm sure you remember, like had that weird little handle on it, big extension cord running through the yard. Like got to be careful to not run it over. Yeah. Had an electric mower, electric weed whacker, electric blower. And then like the following summer upgraded to a Toro, like self-propelled gas one, and like a Craftsman weed eater. But God, I don't know how old I was. Honestly, like in hindsight, like in this day and age, people probably would have said like he's too young to be doing that for sure. So I've always had, again, I've literally always done that up until the time I started my business. I was always doing lawns on the side as extra income. But I actually went to tech school for multimedia technology, and I really wanted to be a camera operator until I got to school and like had some experience on productions. And I was like, okay, not for me. Ironically enough, at the time, I didn't like sitting behind a computer all day, which is what I do now. And then I graduated. I got a job as a groundskeeper at my school district that I graduated from. And yeah, I just was doing that and still doing the lawns on the side. And I think it just like, I don't know when it resonated, but I just was like, I don't know that. I guess I was at my high school, like mowing the grass and like lining the field hockey field and like doing this stuff, this repetitive tasks every single day. And I was like, do I really see myself here for the next 30 plus years? And I was like, I don't think I do. So I made the jump and, we're doing a lot of lawns, and then I transitioned into the mulch and, snowballed into the plants and then into the hardscaping. And yeah, kind of just, I don't know. That's how I got into it. And then I had so much resentment towards it at the end of my business, like after I sold it, because I just was so tired of like all of the moving parts. And I also didn't want to live in Pennsylvania, which was a huge factor.
Mm.
When I sold it, I was like, fuck that. I'm done with this space. I'm never going back. Started a media company with my buddy. Also didn't like that. And then when I moved to Florida, I was going to manage a restaurant, and I got like my feet wet with that. I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I was working at a juice bar, and like, I'm a big like meathead. I go to the gym far more than I should, probably. Like steak, chicken, rice. That's it. And I'm here like in this juice shop selling these juice cleanses and like all this vegan stuff. And I'm like, what am I doing right now? Like I'm a blue collar contractor that like steak, chicken, rice in the gym. Like, why am I in here? And then I kind of just decided to start Design Works, and here we are. So I think I answered your question. That was a long babble, but
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious a little more too, like what was kind of the process like for selling your business? How did you structure all of that? Did you kind of piecemeal it between like clients and equipment, or like?
Yeah, I mean, like when I say sell my business, and I think this is something that should get talked about more in the industry, about like the way that you structure your business, because I'm sure exiting as well, like your business kind of really isn't worth shit unless you have like repeat clients.
Yeah.
So I sold all of my lawn accounts, I think, for 6 services, and I forget how it was broken down. It wasn't like a lump sum up front. It was like in installments. But essentially the guys kept my employees that wanted to stay. They bought 90 or 80 accounts or something like that. So for 6 services, like it wasn't much money. And then I just sold my assets. So whatever, the dump trucks, the mini excavator, the skid steer. Yeah, there wasn't like it wasn't like they bought the company, they bought the assets, and the accounts. And that, from what I understand, they retained a majority of the accounts, and then they did it again like 3 more times. And now they're actually one of my best customers for designs, and he's become a close friend. So
right on.
Pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, that was another issue I kind of had with the whole premise of that. And that's why I like my business now. And why I like working with contractors and not homeowners, is like homeowners going to use you once for a design and that's it. Like contractor might use you for 10 jobs a year. So from a sellable standpoint later in time, I think that a business like I'm in now is going to be a little bit more valuable than like a hardscape business. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's people out there that are able to sell their name and portfolio, but from what I understand, like there's not necessarily a real viable aspect to it.
Yeah, it's hard to build, I guess, what you'd call like enterprise value inside of a lawn care landscaping business. And most of the people, and then personal experience included, that I've talked to that have exited any sort of landscape, hardscape business, most of the time it ends up, going down pretty similar to how you just explained, where it gets piecemealed. Like some people will buy the clients and then you sell the truck, you sell the mower, like all the individual assets of the business kind of
essentially just like liquidating, honestly.
It's pretty, yeah, exactly. You didn't sell the business, you sold the pieces, or like you sold your equipment, you sold your customer.
For sure. And like, it's funny too. I remember looking back and this is after I had sold the accounts. And I remember some of the bigger outfits near me, like I would approach them about it and they offered me like peanuts. I'm like, I'm not hurting. Like, I don't need this money. Like, for lack of a better word, go fuck yourself. And I think what I sold it for to the guy I sold it to was a deal. And I built that lawn route for 5 years. So there are some days that those guys, there's three guys that are in the same neighborhood from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. So like you want to talk about minimum drive time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then where I was going with this is at the end, like I had like a bunch of random tools left. Like I had 2 compactors, the IQ saw. Do you remember? I don't know if you know the dustless saw. It's like a table saw.
Okay. Yeah.
They're pretty popular now, but they had just come out at the time. And I literally bought it and we used it on 2 jobs and a couple other things. And I just remember this one dude like walking into my shop. He's like looking around. He's like, give you $1,000 for everything. I'm like, no. Like I just bought this saw. I don't even remember how much they are, but it was like double that.
Yeah.
Maybe not double that, but whatever. It just was humorous to me. Like the attitude that people have about, you know, buying stuff like that. And like, just like having this like negative, I don't want to say energy, just like this, I wasn't leaving because I was in a bad spot. I was leaving because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And like, everybody was like, oh, he's hurting. Like, let me just fucking offer him peanuts.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm not desperate for this. Like,
Yeah, seriously. Like, again,
Facebook Marketplace lowball offers.
yeah, dude, it was like that. And it's funny. I just remember standing in my shop and I'm just like, yeah, dude, just get out. Like, and I started like shutting the garage door while he was still walking out.
Yeah, that's fucking ridiculous, dude. So with the design business, what software do you guys use to make all of that happen?
So we use VIP 3D, which is Structure Studio's product. That's what like our core guys use. I do have some other designers that I work with that work in Lumion SketchUp, which is like the most common for like, and we'll do that on like higher end stuff.
Hmm.
And this is something that I've struggled with because like I'd like to be utilizing some higher end stuff, but at the same time, I remind myself that this is a concept that we're selling. So to me, from a cost standpoint, and like going back to the same thing that we spoke about earlier, like guys like struggling with the price point of this, like what is the benefit to having a higher, resolution visual? Like to me, there's really not that much because like it might look better and look sexier and look cooler, but like it's going to take double the time and it's going to cost double the amount. So like I find that the VIP 3D works really well for us. It's super efficient and we're able to make pretty damn good visuals from it. So we may like expand into some different stuff later, but for now it's where we're at. But for like, sometimes I'll do architectural renderings for builders and stuff. And we use Lumion for that. SketchUp and Lumion. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of SketchUp before. The other 2 that you mentioned, completely unaware. Would you say that that's something that's easy for a contractor to learn? Like if they wanted to try it themselves?
Yeah, I don't think that it's that if you're a contractor and you have like some sort of computer knowledge, I think it's you could do it. The biggest issue is the time. And like that's what I try to tell them, like, do you have the time to learn software like this? And even when you do, like, myself, Steven, and Mark, we work in this software every single day. So we're a lot more efficient with it. And I mean, honestly, I'm going to produce a 10 times better quality product than a contractor is.
Yeah.
Not even because they're not able to, but because I'm efficient and I have the time to do it. It's like all the little extra details that make it look better. I have the time to do it. They don't, essentially.
Yeah. Honestly, like for me too, that I would say the same thing. Like, could any contractor go out there and learn how to build a website or like, screw around in Wix or Squarespace and put a template in there and figure it out? Yes. But is it going to be the best product? Probably not. Is it going to be frustrating for the first 10 hours that you're trying to learn the software and figure it out? Yes.
More than frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, at what point does your mental health and your time just not be equal to the amount of money that you could spend to just have a professional do it and get a better product in a quicker period of time and not have
Yeah,
to, pay for the software, spend time learning it, watch a million tutorials. And like me and you in our own, compartments and our own services have kind of taken the time and developed the skill set, learn the software. And that's why we're able to offer these things as a service, essentially, is,
yeah,
taking the guesswork out of it and delivering a professional, polished product. So
for sure.
I totally get that. What do you think is like the biggest project that you've designed? I mean, that could be financial value, but also maybe just like square footage or like the overall size. I feel like maybe those two things would be correlated, but
Yeah, they are. So I just did a job for a buddy of mine, Matt, from he's like upstate New York area, and they're doing it's new construction. They're doing this huge, like large segment wall up the side of the driveway, and then there's another because it's upstate New York. There's crazy terrain,
mm,
and then a wall retaining the backyard, a pool, infinity edge, big ass patio, big ass fire table, shit ton of steps, bunch of plants. I think if I'm not mistaken, Matt closed that job for like 450,000,
mm,
which was awesome. And like, he was so stoked, and it made all of the time that like him and I, you want to talk about some time, him and I put some time into this. Like, and I think for me that was kind of a pivotal point too, because that's kind of when we adjusted our pricing.
mm,
Because I had never designed something of that caliber, and I didn't really realize how much time it was going to truly take me. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was a cool experience, and it was just fun as hell. Like, it's very rare that I get to design something that with a budget of that caliber, with all of those features. So it was a cool experience. That was probably like the biggest one. I don't even know if I would necessarily say it's my favorite though. I really like small spaces, if I'm being honest.
mm.
Not even because obviously it's a lot quicker, but I don't get paid as much, number one. But I like taking a small space and maximizing the functionality of it, and like the challenge of having a small space to accommodate whatever layout we're trying to do.
Mm.
I don't know, something about small spaces.
Yeah. Have you seen those like the Instagram it looks like a 3D modeling, but it's like um the one bedroom apartment in like Japan or whatever where they do like
I just saw that. That was so fucking weird.
yeah. But talk about like maximizing a small
Yeah.
space. Every
Yeah.
single thing like folds out and has all this
Yeah.
other stuff. Yeah, those are funny.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, it is cool to kind of I guess have like a challenge or an obstacle. Like how much can we actually squeeze out of this space here and obviously make it still aesthetically pleasing and also practical. So
Yeah.
yeah. I've talked to other landscape designers, not necessarily in software design. I mean more like plantings and
Yeah.
doing install stuff like what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And obviously, when they're doing that with their colors, their shapes, their balance, like they have their principles of design. Is
Mhm.
that something that you operate by too? Is there any like not rules, but just like
Yeah.
fundamental or like from the artistic creative side that you try to incorporate?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, no. I didn't go to school for this. I don't have formal training. I just know what I like and like what inspires me, and I kind of just combine those things to come up with whatever I come up with. And like, I think landscape design is such an interesting thing because I don't think people look at it as art, but it really is. And art is subjective, right? So like everybody is going to look at it and process it differently. And this has been an issue, not an issue, but a challenge navigating as well. Working with contractors who are creatives,
Mm,
because like their plant palette's different from my plant palette. So that was a challenge in itself as well, like kind of navigating that. But as far as principles, I mean, odd numbers, I try to stick to that, but even still, I don't always do that.
mm.
But for me, I just like, obviously focal points. I like layers, up against the house, layers, and then focal points in different components and spaces of the yard. And I like to utilize a lot of ground cover. I don't really like open space. And I don't like overcrowding shit either. So like it might just be like a focal point here, like lower section of shrubbery around it, and then ground cover. Like you'll see that in like anything that I have creative freedom on, like you'll see that exact setup. And then up against the house, up against the building, like you'll see a row of shrubs in the back, another lower section, and then like perennials and boulders. I'll put boulders anywhere I can squeeze them. It's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no real like principles. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guys that get upset by that, but like, it's fucking art. You don't have to like my shit. I don't have to like your shit.
Yeah. And, while there are principles or like best practices when it comes to artistic, stuff like that, at the end of the day, every artist tells you like, learn the rules so you can break them anyway. And at the end of the day, like it all comes back to full circle of like, well, just do what you think looks good. And, if you don't have that kind of innate creative instinct, I guess you could call it, where it's like you kind of just start plugging away, doing what you like, what you think, and it does look good. Like art, obviously very subjective, but I do think that objectively there are certain things that just like, okay, that is generally aesthetically pleasing or it's not.
Sure. Yeah.
On a balance of probabilities, you show this picture to 9 or 10 people, majority of them will say either yes or no if it's like a good quality design or whatever. So, I think that if you got it, if you have that creative intuition, ingenuity, whatever you want to call it, then yeah, chances are you're probably going to subconsciously be following these, what people would tell you are the rules anyway. And it's just kind of like a gift or, whatever you're creating.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, you might be right. Like I might follow a bunch of rules that I'm unaware of, but like, I don't know them.
Yeah. Which is interesting. It's cool. It's not something where it should be super structured and rigid all the time. Like there has to be flexibility. And I think that's when things would get stale, right? Like if you
agreed. And it's, what I hate too is about it is like, and I'll see it in Facebook groups all the time. Someone will like post something that they're stoked on. And like, I might not like it, but I'd never be like, some of these guys are like, man, you are a fucking idiot. This looks terrible. Like you should have did this. Like, what are you talking about? Like installed properly, customers happy, contractors happy. You don't have to look at it. Who the fuck cares? Like that's what it's about at the end of the day. The same thing with art. Like I just saw some guys putting paint on a branch and smacking a canvas with it and selling his shit for like $7,000 a piece. And everybody's like so butthurt and upset. Like this isn't art. Like, listen, if someone's willing to pay for it, who the fuck cares? Like in my mind, I'm like, dude, more power to this guy. I'm an idiot. He's smacking a canvas with a tree and getting paid for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. People are just bitter and, jealous or angry or fucking for no reason.
Yep.
And I see it all the time too. I'm in a lot of the landscaping Facebook groups and communities and stuff like that. Obviously I have a couple of my own too. And, a lot of the ones that are public with a ton of members, whatever, dude, it's just like a cesspool of guys that think that their opinion is
it's weight in gold.
Yeah. For some reason or another, whether ego, fucking, who knows?
Well, that's just it too. In the contracting space, like it's all ego.
Yeah. And it's obviously very easy to sit on a keyboard and just, oh, your shit sucks, bro. It's like, all right, cool.
Someone said that. I like posted my apparel in a group the other day and like I was like $30 for or $32 for a t-shirt. No, thanks. And I was like, thanks for your inquiry or something. Like, shut up, dude.
Or thanks for letting us know you're fucking broke, dude. Sorry.
Yes. Like, what are we, it's 2024. We're talking about a t-shirt for $32. Like, shut up, dude.
Yeah.
And there's some of these other companies that, the giveaway companies that kill me. Like they sell actual shit for like $45, $50. Like crappy material. Like I tried 4 different shirts before we went with these, and like it's not cheap. Material's not cheap. It's not cheap to produce it.
Not at all. And people don't realize that even if you are selling a t-shirt for 25, 30, even 40 or 50 bucks, like, dude, your margins on that are not great, especially once you do shipping and like payment processing, all that stuff. Bro, people are so unaware of what it takes to actually build, manufacture, and deliver a product.
What's crazy about that though is like, while I understand what you're saying, is like, dude, you're a contractor. So like you get upset when you tell someone that a project's $20,000 and they're like, oh, that's outrageous. Like you think to yourself, well, fuck you, lady. Like I'm only going to make $5,000 on this, or I'm only going to make, $4,000 on this, whatever. And I'm just spitballing numbers.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, they think that I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Well, see, practice what you preach, motherfucker. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. My $32 t-shirt's pretty much doing like the same thing.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about that a little more while we're on the topic, the clothing side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm super fired up about it. It's kind of always something I wanted to do when we started getting some traction on social media. Honestly, it's a little bit sooner than I would have anticipated, but it was kind of just the way the cookie crumbled. But essentially, yeah, we have apparel that is going to be directly for like the landscape community. It's only going to be landscape related stuff. I like art. Again, I'm a designer. Like I like skulls. I have a shit ton of them tattooed on me. So I kind of wanted to encompass like the skeleton skull thing with, some sort of landscape, hardscape related stuff with some like edgy innuendos. Like I think the one that's most popular right now it's called Ripping Lines is the name of the shirt. And it's just like some skeleton dude just ripping a curvy walkway with a saw. I don't know. I just think it's cool. And I don't think there's nothing like, I'm sure there's people that sell merchandise, but like there's nothing like that for our community. And I just kind of was like, well, I volunteer as tribute. But yeah, we're only about a week and a half in, but super stoked about that. And that's like a whole new world that I'm learning about, which we kind of talked a little bit about before this. But it's been fun, man. I'm super excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll definitely have links to all that stuff when we go and post this for sure.
Cool.
And what have been some of like the challenges with getting that set up?
The apparel?
Yeah.
I think just the cost, like it hasn't been outrageous, but like, dude, this shit adds up. You buy all the shirts. And like another thing I've been dealing with too is like, I bought small quantities of common sizes. And like, I've had people requesting like sizes that I don't have. And I'm like, fuck, like I should have them, but I'm like, I already shelled out, $3,000 in just the apparel itself, plus like a Shopify store, a domain name, the marketing, like I've been spending money on marketing, and then the printer, all the materials to package the stuff. I'm trying to think of what else I bought. I don't know. All I know is that it added up fast. So.
Yeah.
But again, it's a long-term investment. Like I'm not trying to strike gold here. I just wanted to make something that's cool for the community.
Yeah. And yeah, dude, the manufacturing costs and all that stuff, especially if you're doing it and fulfilling the orders and whatnot yourself, like, yeah, there's a lot of startup costs.
I'm not gonna lie, fulfilling the orders is kind of fun. It's like peace of mind for me. It's a little different than like sitting behind the computer. I put some music on, I print my labels with my little printer, slap them on there, run them over to the USPS, not UPS.
Yeah, and send it on its happy way and know that someone's getting a cool t-shirt. And
yeah, man, for sure.
Right on. To kind of double back to the landscape design side of things, have you noticed any trends in the industry as far as like what people are requesting, or just kind of like the style of some designs or projects?
Yes and no. Like, I mean, first and foremost, designing all over the country has been extremely educational because like I'm from Southeast Pennsylvania. So like that was all I knew. But the different material trends, like from up north to like the Midwest to down south here in South Florida to the regular South, where like it's just so different. Obviously the plant materials and the different zones is one thing, but I'm talking more just like paver material, who's using concrete, who isn't, travertine, marble, natural stone. So I don't think that there's necessarily like any trends per se. I will say this, that I think that there's a lot of, I'm gonna catch some shade for this, but I don't care. I'm just gonna fucking say it. Like, I think that there's a lot of people doing a lot with paver material. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of people doing too much with paver material, and there's a lot of people doing a lot the right way, which I think looks great. However, I don't think that some of these installations are timeless. So like me personally, when I'm designing something, I'm thinking about 10, 15 years from now, like, is this going to be in style? And like, there's a couple materials that are like worth their weight in gold that are going to be timeless forever. Like brick's number one, Pennsylvania bluestone, which is really popular in the Northeast. That shit is never going to go out of style. And then if you come, down here in South Florida, marble or travertine, I don't think that's going to go out of style. I do think that at some point in the future, like the whole turf inlay thing, which is huge down here, I'm sure you see it there in Plantation. Like, yeah, I think that will go out of style. Not to mention, like, I love turf inlays, and like large slab concrete with turf inlays is my jam. But I think that is something that's going to go out of style. But yeah, I don't really think that there's any trends that I'm noticing. Like, it's just, yeah, I don't really think there's anything new lately.
Yeah, I think the turf inlay is a big one. I've been seeing that everywhere. It seems to be extremely popular.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's cool. It's like, I don't necessarily see like the practicality or like the application, like the purpose of having like a tiny little strip of turf in between all of your pavers, other than just like, it looks good.
That's just aesthetic. Yeah, there's definitely no like benefit to it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the only benefit I think from an aesthetic standpoint is like you're just breaking up like a lot of hard surface.
Yeah.
Especially like if someone's doing a concrete driveway, like that's boring as shit. Add some turf inlays, now you have some interest.
Yeah, and it's different colors, different textures, everything. Like you said, it's just a nice breakup from a flat, same color slab of whatever. So, do you have any tips or things that you notice from working with a variety of landscapers where you feel like, you notice the same things that they're struggling with, whether it be them as people, as business owners, or, them as landscapers? Is there anything that stands out to you as like a common problem?
Yeah, for sure. And this might be a little deeper than you were looking for. And I just think from my experiences and even now, I think the biggest issue is like a lack of self-awareness. In the sense of like not being able to recognize your flaws. And like, if you can't recognize them, you certainly can't fix them.
Yeah.
And I think that could be pointed in any which direction you want about anything in business, life, being a man, whatever. But yeah, I think that's something that people certainly struggle with. And then from like a more business side of things, I think, we talked about it earlier, is like knowing what you're good at and sticking to that, and then hiring for the shit that you're not good at. Yeah, those would be the two things I would say.
Yeah, and the self-awareness piece, obviously, it's something that you can't necessarily give someone a training manual on how to figure out. Like,
you can't teach. I think it's just a matter of, like you said, like self-reflecting and being like, well, why do these problems keep happening over and over again? Because I'm doing this or I'm doing this. Like,
yeah.
But again, like you said, you can't teach someone that. It's just something that I guess happens over time or with age or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard to talk for me at least because I'm interested in all of these different worlds, right? Like whether it be, like self-improvement and just like manosphere, like being a guy, being a man in the fucking 21st century, what that means and all the other shit that's out there. And then also being a business owner and all that stuff. And I think it's at some level, it becomes impossible to talk about one without the other. And this has for some reason been a trend that keeps coming up, probably for the same reason. But, it's hard to grow as a business owner without growing as a person too. Like, very commonly you get capped out with your business at the same level that you are on like your personal development, self-awareness, all these other factors that we just talked about, like bake into that. And it's a challenging thing for some people because the business part, maybe they've been exposed to for their whole life or have plenty of experience with, but dealing with some of the personal problems and the lacking of that self-awareness of how to, be aware of, and then address and then start implementing and changing on some of those things, taking action to make them better. Like that's something that, bro, there is no manual, no course, no something. It's like something that you have to innately kind of just have or at least be aware of yourself. And not only like you can be aware of things also, like you could have self-awareness for sure, but also have zero drive or motivation or reason to change anything about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Well, everything you just listed is its own step in itself. Like being self-aware is being number one, like realizing that there's a problem. And then like realizing what the root of the problem is and then changing it. It's a whole nother fucking thing.
Yeah. And taking action and committing to that.
Commitment. That would be the last one for sure.
Yeah.
You can do it today, but are you going to do it tomorrow?
Right. Yeah. I have definitely fallen victim to that a couple of times where it's like, oh, fuck, dude. Like, here's a list of all the things I need to change about my life to be a better person. Yeah. And I'll wake up tomorrow and do all of them. And then next day. And a week later, it's like half of them are still happening. But it's just like, fuck, dude. Like, I think that's something that is definitely.
And I think people get overwhelmed and like have analysis paralysis. Like, just fucking do one thing. You're not going to change 10 things at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a hard thing for me to realize in business. It's been easier in other aspects of my life. Like, from a fitness standpoint, like I've been in the fitness space for like arguably 10 years, like consistently training and eating. And like, I just remember initially, like it was super difficult. Like I started training and then I was like, okay, well, like maybe I should start implementing more nutritious foods. But now it's like second nature. But like I have a hard time for whatever reason, like when I put that practice to business, I'm like, why am I not blocking my days? Like even now I still do this shit. Like I don't block my days. Why the fuck I do that? I have no idea. Like, and when I do it, I'm like, oh my God, I should do this every day. Like, this hour of my day is devoted to answering text messages, phone calls, emails. This 2 hours is a creative window. This hour is for lunch and like getting outside away from the computer. And then like these next hours are for prospecting or whatever. But yeah, I don't even know where we were going with that, but that's how I feel.
That's interesting. I'm similar to you, probably. Like I would identify as like a creative person and definitely have, I forget if it's left or right brain, the creative one, but I'm definitely maybe a little more on that side of the balance between the two.
Yeah.
And I similarly, like, bro, I absolutely am terrible when it comes to structuring and scheduling things. I'm definitely kind of fly by the seat of my pants, and somehow like everything always gets done by the time it needs to get done and it works out, but it can be stressful in the process and it's not as smooth or organized as it could be. And I wonder if like, when I think about it, like, why don't I do that more? Because like you said, same thing for me, dude. On the days where I do block everything out and I like have that in place. I'm like, oh shit, I got a ton done. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't I do this every day? And I guess the first like response that pops into my brain when I ask myself, like, why don't I do it, is for some reason, I think that like my creative brain just like absolutely despises like rigidity and structure and
Yeah.
like
Well,
control.
that's because you have a creative brain. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Fuck the
And
system.
yeah, exactly. So it's like I can't even create a system for myself without
Yeah.
rebelling against myself. It's like, bruh, like I gotta get over that because
Yeah.
there needs to be some level of commitment, discipline, and just like schedule of something. It just
Yeah.
makes life easier. So yeah, it's I can definitely be productive without it, but I know that to unlock another level of productivity, that's something that needs to
Needs
happen.
to be
So
implemented. Yeah. That's where I'm at, man.
yeah,
With time, day by day, right?
yep, one at a time. And like you said, not trying to implement everything all at once. Just okay, I'm going to structure the first. I'm just going to have a program for my morning routine, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the first hour of my day needs to be organized and set up, and then maybe from then till lunch, and then after that, the rest of the day is whatever. And just I
Yeah.
don't know, for me, that might be the move as far as how to implement something like that, not being super
Yeah.
focused with it.
I mean, the problem I think too for us is again dealing with contractors who also fly by the seat of their pants and don't know what their day looks like. Like, I think we have to be very flexible within reason.
Mm,
And I'm guilty of this, and I've had issues with this in the past. Like, set boundaries, but you also have to be flexible. Like, because we're a service business and we're dealing with people that have limited time.
mm. Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
I'm sure you probably encounter the same thing where I have clients from literally New York to California and they're in every time zone.
yeah,
Like for me, there might be people that book meetings at like 10 o'clock at night for me, but they're just getting home from their day. And it's like the
yeah,
only time we can make that happen. So I have to be flexible with that. And also, things come up, clients need to, have questions answered, or there's a project that we're doing or a campaign that needs to be adjusted. And it's like, dude, I could be going to bed at like 10 to midnight and a client could book a call or, schedule something while I'm asleep and wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh shit, like I have a meeting in 10 minutes. I didn't even like,
yeah,
dude, there's so much stuff that comes up that's just like, it is hard to schedule and block the days because something like that happens and it's like, bro, that
yeah,
whole plan just went out the fucking window
yep,
because I gotta make the best that I can with what I got, and I have my life, but my clients have needs too, and obviously I'm here to provide value for them, and I gotta kind of meet them on their ground sometimes too. So
for sure.
what that looks like is never the same day to day. So can be a
Yeah,
little bit of a challenge as far as predicting all of that.
yeah, man, no doubt.
Yeah. So you talked about the gym a little bit too.
Mhm.
Obviously, like fitness is something that I think is hands down one of the easiest ways to like just improve as a person, as a business owner, mental health, physical health,
Yeah,
all of that. Like for me in my life, when it comes to discipline and stuff like that, all of it kind of piggybacks off of my discipline with the gym and like physical health. So,
yeah,
all right. So we're back. Minor technical difficulties, but talking about like the gym and stuff, biggest thing for me, when I was running my landscaping business, I would obviously have a lot more free time in the winter. So I'd be in the gym super consistently, get the gains. I'd be feeling really great. And then come back to spring, like, obviously I'm working 10-hour days in the sun, just absolutely drained, trying to get
yeah,
to the gym when possible. And, also being in the field working, it's hard to take care of yourself in all of the same ways that you do when you have more time, whether that be getting in the gym and having an actual productive workout where you're not just like completely gassed from being out and working all day. And then also the the meals and the diets part of it as well, where it's way too easy to get on the gas station diet when you're just out busy working, doing
so
all
bad.
that.
Yeah.
So is there any tips, tricks, or advice that you have for guys to stay motivated to preserve their physical health as much as possible, especially during the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and my mindset on this topic has slightly shifted, honestly, in like the last year, where I feel like I'm more focused on feeling better now than I am like more so than what I look like. Like obviously, like any sort of physical activity is going to contribute to the way that you look in a positive manner. I think if you're working in the field every day, obviously it's extremely hard, number one, to, from a physical standpoint, go and exert more energy at the gym. And second, to even if you have time to do that or if you don't. What I will say is, as far as fitness, like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, like you either make time for it or you don't. Um, and that's on you whether you're able to do that or if you want to do that. Um, but I do think that any sort of movement is important, and that exerting energy not in a matter of working is important and good for you. So if you can kind of, it doesn't have to be like weight training. It could be running. It could be playing soccer. It could be hockey, whatever. Like just do some sort of physical activity beyond just working in the field. The second thing is nutrition. And like, I think this is a huge problem in the industry that is not spoken about enough. Um, like you can honestly live the gas station life and not eat shit. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of healthy choices at the gas station, believe it or not. Um, and it's funny. This is probably a video that I'll make here in the near future. I've been thinking about this one, like, instead of getting a Red Bull or a big soda, like get a coffee.
Mm.
Instead of drinking a half gallon of iced tea, drink a gallon of water. Instead of getting a fucking hot dog for breakfast, like, which is, we laugh, but like this is real shit. Like this is what happens. Like I remember going to the gas station and my guys getting like pizza and Doritos at 7 a.m. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like that shit is good and it's fine to have sometimes, but like we're about to work in 95-degree weather all day long, and this is how you're going to nourish your body for that 10-hour shift. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like again, like substituting the shit for a protein bar or beef jerky. There's usually apples or bananas at gas stations. There's so many options. And even like going to a fast food place or anywhere. Like I just think that there could be a better community effort to facilitate a healthier lifestyle in an industry that's so physically demanding.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to watch, and same thing, like, similar experience watching guys get, the white monster and a couple roller dogs. It's like, dude, that is not going to be treating you well in
Oh,
about 30 minutes when we're back out in the blazing heat and you're running the weed whacker. Like, bro,
yeah,
that's going to be hard for you, dude. Fuck, man.
yeah, not to say like I drink energy drinks and pre workout and whatever. But I don't do that before I'm about to go be in the sun for 10 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, I get it. Like I used to go to the gym when I could after work. And like, honestly, from a fitness perspective of like whether I was making gains or not, like I can guarantee you I wasn't making gains. I was in a caloric deficit regularly because
Mm.
I wasn't eating. I was living a gas station diet. Now I was making healthier choices at the gas station. Like I wasn't leaving with taquitos and a hot dog. Like I would go get a protein bar, beef jerky, whatever. Um, but yeah, in a caloric deficit, and then I would train hard and like never seek gains. And it wasn't until later that I realized, like after I was out of the space, not even when I was out of the space, but when I transitioned to more of a sales role and I was eating like real meals, and I was like, oh, when you're not in a deficit and you train hard and eat in a surplus, this is what happens. Like your body changes. But again, that's all kind of advanced stuff for a contractor looking to better his health. I mean, just don't overcomplicate the shit. Like, don't eat a Twinkie, eat a banana. Don't drink an energy drink, drink a cup of black coffee. Don't drink iced tea, drink water. And do some sort of movement beyond work. And I think that you'll see a dramatic increase in your quality of life. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. And another thing for me too was always just like basic stretching and mobility type movements. I mean, whether you're sitting on a lawnmower all day or, hunched back with a weed whacker for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time, and then you go sit in the truck, and then you're doing it again and then sitting in the truck, or, whether you're humping wheelbarrows full of mulch or, moving stones and pavers and stuff like that, like, dude, your body is going to take a absolute beating, and
Yeah.
doing small things like, a little bit of stretching before you start the day, or just
Yeah.
basic stuff. And like you said, you can't overcomplicate it, because you'll just be like, fuck this, whatever. There's too much going on. I don't have time for this. Right. But those small, tiny things, that just preventative stuff that can be done to probably save your ass later on.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we have so many resources this day and age beyond like, health stuff, like the combination of the tools and like taking a little bit care of yourself. Like there's no reason that you cannot be in this space and work for a long time. Like there's literally no excuses anymore.
yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of taking a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to, set those things up, and come up with some kind of plan or routine or
Yeah.
something. So 100%. So one thing I like to do at the ends of these podcasts is kind of ask you guys a question that you want me to ask the next guest. And it can be anything, it can be related to, personal stuff, self-development, business, landscaping, whatever.
Yeah.
So question from Colby Fitch from the last podcast. He said, and he does lawn care. And his question was, what do you guys do to keep yourself and also your crew members busy in the off season, like come winter? So I know that might work very different for you, but
Yeah.
similarly, like you might not be getting a lot of design jobs in the winter when people are slow too. So I'm sure there's some application of the question to your business as well.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think that like our lulls are kind of strange. Like they come at random times.
Mm.
Obviously in the winter it's a little bit slower, but I think for me it's just like lowering my expectation of what to expect from the business itself in those months. So
Mm.
like realizing that, in December, I'm not going to do the same numbers that I was doing in April or May. And that's just the truth of the matter. Fortunately for, my line of work, it's not that much of a difference, really from the winter to there, but there is some difference.
Mm.
So I guess to answer the question, what do I do to keep my guys busy? I will cut back on the work that I'm doing in order to fulfill my guys' plate. And
Yeah.
I'll always make sure they eat before I do.
Yep. Putting the team first. And then another part of that I think a lot of guys maybe they realize it the hard way after a couple seasons, but kind of financially planning, like you said, lowering expectations as far as what your income might be, and then
Yeah.
also projecting that out. So come, October, you're starting to think ahead a couple months as far as what things might look like financially, and kind of having a game plan for, getting through some of those slower months. And
Yeah.
takes a little bit of discipline, but ultimately understanding that the numbers aren't always going to be looking like what they are in spring and
Yeah.
summer. It's just part of the nature of this type of business, where seasonality does play a huge role, and accounting for that and predicting that as much as possible, and planning for it, and
Yeah,
just having something in place for that.
for sure.
Yep. So what would your question be for the next guest that I have on?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just asked someone just posted like a questionnaire on Instagram, and I asked this. I'm trying to think of the way that I worded it. Um, I guess the question was like, how do you? In fact, I'm gonna look. I don't know if I can or not. Actually, you had him on. It's Chris from Black Diamond.
Oh, nice.
Didn't you have Chris on?
Yep.
I can't find it now. But essentially, like, I'm not sure how to word this properly, but like a question that I always ask other people because something I struggle with is like, how do you draw the line between somebody taking advantage of your time? Like, how do you set an expectation of what someone, how the fuck do I word this? Jesus. Like, how do you make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of as far as time? Like, how do you draw that boundary of service and expectation and like people taking advantage of your time?
Mm.
So I
So
don't know how we could reword that to make it make sense.
is that more like in dealing with clients and like communication and
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So kind of like we talked about it a little bit before we started
Yeah.
recording, like the um people that are inquiring and maybe they're like kind of some like tire kicker type clients
Yeah.
where they're asking for all this information and handouts and whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe like to clarify, like when dealing with clients, how do you set boundaries as far as communication with them to make
That's
sure?
literally that's what I said. I think that's what I asked him. How do you set boundaries like
Mm,
with, and I think that's the simplest way to put it. Like I would love to hear how people set boundaries.
mm, okay.
What's the expectation from the first conversation to make sure that you're setting boundaries, but obviously also providing service?
Right. Okay, sweet. That's a really good question. I think that regardless of what business or industry you're in, that's something that probably everybody deals with across the board. So
For
I will
sure.
definitely take note of that and pop that question at the end of the next podcast for sure.
Cool, man.
Yep. So, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to hop on and do this. Obviously, when we go to post this stuff, we'll have all of your links in the description and whatnot below the video. But in the meantime, why don't you just tell people where they can find you at?
Yeah, so you can find us at Design Works with an X Outdoor. That's our Instagram handle, Facebook handle, and then my personal page, which I tend to post more like informative content, is Colin with one L, Slota, Slota.
All right. Right on. You guys have like a website or anything else
Oh
to
yeah,
look
I should
at?
probably shout that out too. So the website for the design company is designworks with an X outdoor.com. And then the apparel page is dworksapparel.com. Also have a TikTok and Instagram store attached right to our page. So
Sweet. There you go. Well, that's where you can find them at. Again, we'll have all that stuff linked down below. Colin, been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much. And
like
I appreciate your time, brother. Thank you.
you as well, man. Take care, man.
All right. Ciao.